In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw this Cyberpunk cityscape in 2 points perspective. How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all doing good. I have another drawing tutorial for you today, and we are going to be drawing a Cyberpunk cityscape, and this is surprisingly simple, so feel free to follow along and I'll explain everything the best I can. So I'm going to begin by outlining a rectangle here, and this is going to be our picture plane. Seeing as we are drawing in perspective, we need to establish the position of the horizon line, and for this example, it's going to be directly across the center. Now, if you have even a little understanding of perspective, that will really help here. I do have a series which covers the basics on the channel, so be sure to check that out if you need to refresh your memory. So now the horizon line is across the page and continues past the picture plane, and to help us create this drawing, I'm going to start by drawing out some grid lines which converge to the vanishing points. So there's going to be 2 vanishing points here, seeing as we are drawing in 2 points perspective, and there'll be one to the left and one to the right. These are both going to be off the page for this drawing, hence why I want to draw some grid lines to make this easier when I have to estimate the direction of my lines. So the vanishing point to the right isn't going to be as far off the page as the one to the left. And you can see as I draw out this line from the top corner here, how it converges down off the side of the page. This would continue until it meets the horizon line where we would have a vanishing point. I do the same here below the horizon line, making sure this is directed towards that same point. Now, I won't draw in any more lines heading to this side just yet because I want to establish the position of the left vanishing point first, and this one is going to be a lot further off the page. Again, from this corner at the other side, I'll take a line and direct it off the page, and you can see that the convergence isn't as drastic as the lines heading to the right vanishing point because this one is a lot further away. That's not an issue there. I can easily draw in another line above by observing this one and have them both meet at that left vanishing point. So by placing these lines, I have established the position of both vanishing points, and now I'm going to add some more guidelines like this across the picture plane to help guide me as I draw. As I do this, I observe the distance between these lines at the edge of the picture plane. That helps me draw in some new lines heading to the vanishing points. Okay, so now I have some guidelines drawn out which I can use as I draw in some boxes for the buildings in this cityscape. I've already planned out how I want this to look, so here you can either just copy what I do or make it your own and draw some boxes at different sizes and in different positions. Here I start by adding a vertical line to the left because there's going to be a large building in the forefront here. And now I'm going to start outlining some boxes. There's going to be 2 at the same size down here and another taller one behind them to the left. Again, behind these I'll draw another wider box, and as I draw these boxes I make sure that my lines are heading towards the vanishing points. I can use the guidelines I added to make sure of this. I draw a much taller building here towards the back and continue to outline more boxes, working my way across the image. Now, although it doesn't matter too much here when drawing buildings because they can be at any size anyways, you may have to consider the effect of foreshortening at times, meaning that everything appears smaller the further into the distance it is. So if you are drawing 2 buildings that are identical, if one is further back, it has to be smaller than the other one that is further forwards. You can see how I do this with these 2 taller boxes here, which I intend on making the same. So anyways, I continue to draw some boxes, placing them around, behind and in front of each other at different sizes. I do, however, make sure that the boxes heading off to the right are smaller because I don't want all of the buildings in this cityscape to be right up front. So all the boxes for the buildings have been drawn out now, and I'm now going to add some more boxes, which will be where I will draw out some vehicles once we get into outlining this drawing in detail. This is a cyberpunk cityscape, so flying cars are inevitable, and I'll have one up here in the distance, as well as one closer to the forefront of the image here. Drawing these in as boxes helps me place them in perspective, and it will make it easier for me to outline them in detail later. I'll also add a few more cars around and in the distance. Okay, so in terms of an initial block out for the image, we are done, and although that was fairly straightforward, it's really given me an idea of where every building and vehicle needs to be. So now it's going to be a case of working over these boxes, adding some detail to them, and developing them so that they appear more like cyberpunk styled buildings. So I'm going to place this stage in and out of a time lapse as I discuss how I approach all of this. As always, I'm going to work from left to right here and start with this building to the left where we can only see one side of it. I'm actually going to start by adding some vertical lines, creating a more interesting shape. And this building to the left here is going to be the same as the other two taller buildings within this cityscape, and so at two places along the side of this I'm going to have the building stepping in just in an effort to make this more interesting as opposed to being a flat surface. So I'm going to add some windows down the side of this, and as I add these lines I make sure they follow the same convergence as my guidelines, and these are heading towards the right vanishing point. I also make an effort to make these equally spaced apart. I also work on one section at a time here. I add some vertical lines between these spaces for the windows, and I continue to do this all the way down. At the sections which are pushed in, I add a balcony, and this can be seen more clearly on the section down below here. I continue to do this until this building has been outlined in detail. So now I have almost finished outlining this first building, and I move my way down to the other two below here. Now currently these are just simple boxes, which isn't ideal for a cyberpunk styled building, so here I'm going to work on top of the box and develop this so that it's a more interesting shape. As I do all of this, I always consider the direction of my lines. Here I add a section at the top, and I'm just improvising when it comes to how these buildings will appear. You're able to get pretty crazy when it comes to these cyberpunk buildings. That's why I enjoy this genre, especially when it comes to my art. So I've separated this box into two sections, and at the side of this building I'm going to add a walkway which leads to the next building, and I think I'm going to make the building next to this the same as well. At least that's what I intended to do when I made both of these boxes the same size. So again, I work on top of this existing box, adding the necessary details whilst considering the direction of my lines. So whilst I was drawing out this building, I decided to add a section of another building that's going to be in the very forefront of the image here. Now we are only going to see the top of this, and so I add a barrier around the top. This side will be directed towards that right vanishing point, and the other side at the front will be directed to the left vanishing point. And I make sure to draw all of this out first, because then I'm going to be drawing the buildings that are behind this. Now that this is done, I can finish the building behind it, which I started drawing a moment ago. So I am making progress, but I still have a while to go before all of this is drawn out. Here I'll move over to this building, in which I decided to work on the top of. I add some kind of curving roof onto this which overhangs like so. Now I'm working outside of the box as I do this, and that's fine. I just need to again make sure that these lines are converging to the vanishing points. I also add some windows on the side of this, and these are going to be a lot smaller because this building is further into the distance. For the building to the left here, I outlined some rectangular panels down the side of it. If any of you are familiar with the cyberpunk genre, you'll know that neon lights and billboards are common, and I think this cityscape I'm drawing needs some of that. I also add an additional section to the side of the building and outline some windows below. Seeing as I am drawing in this area, I also move up to the box above and outline one of the flying cars. Again, the reason why this box helps is because I'm able to see how the vehicle would be seen from this point in perspective. Because it's above the horizon line, we see the underside of the vehicle and also the back of it from here. I'll also come back and add some detail to the billboards later. For now, I'm trying to get these remaining buildings outlined in detail. Here with this one, you can probably tell that I started to experiment a bit because I add some structures to this building that appear quite industrial, and when it comes to rendering this drawing later, I do want to add some smoke coming from some of these buildings. Now as I move over to the right, I come to the taller building, which I said is going to be the same style as the one furthest up front to the left here, except we can see all of this one, and so you can see here how I work within the box I had started with to add various sections which step in and out. I'm also going to add those balcony sections to this, as well as outlining the windows. Now because this building is quite far into the distance, I'm not going to be so precise when it comes to outlining the pattern for the windows. An important factor to consider when drawing in perspective is not only does everything diminish in scale the further into the distance it is, but everything also becomes less visible. You won't see as much detail here, and so adding some lines and marking windows on this building as I do here is good enough. Okay, so now this box that I had drawn for another vehicle is in the way, and so I start to outline this one. Again, the box that I had drawn out here is very helpful because I can work within that box to block out a more suitable shape for the car. And this car is flying, so instead of giving it wheels, I'll replace them with something that looks like it could make the car hover. Again, I'm not spending too much time here worrying about the design of this Cyberpunk car. In fact, I recently uploaded a tutorial onto Patreon in which I had drawn a Cyberpunk car, but this one here is fairly basic. I was more concerned with making this look correct in terms of its positioning in the image. So there's only a few more buildings left to outline here, and now I'll add more detail to the ones further to the front, but I'm going to leave out a lot of detail for the ones at the back for the same reason as I explained a moment ago. You won't see a lot of that detail because they are quite far off into the distance. There is this tower at the back though, which is the same as the one in the centre there, and so I add enough detail to that to make that obvious, but this doesn't need anything other than an outline. So there we go, I have now finished outlining this Cyberpunk cityscape, and if you have been following along and have gotten to this stage, then congratulations. It's really up to you now to decide how you want to finish this drawing. You could leave the line work as it is or choose to render the drawing any way you want to. If you are familiar with my videos, you'll know that I typically render my drawings at the end here in pencil, and so I'm going to do the same for this one. As always, I'll place this stage in a time lapse and you can see how I approach this. So we are coming to an end now, as I've nearly finished rendering this cityscape. I hope you like how this has turned out, and I also hope that you found this tutorial helpful. I have many perspective drawing tutorials on the channel, as well as on Patreon, so if you want to watch more, then be sure to check that out. With that being said, thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the content I create, then do consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You will gain access to exclusive tutorials, study documents, process papers, real-time drawing footage and more. Plus you will also be supporting me in a more personal way. Other than that, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you soon.